we did pull a couple of planes out of the water while we were there that had been, well, one of them I think crashed. The other, though, was just dumped out there. And you know, the Lake Washington is 300 feet deep, and they take it out to the deepest part. Well, a couple of young men, enterprising young men, got these things up to the surface. And the Secretary of the Navy wanted us to get it back, get those planes back. Well, you know, they were old. One of them had been burned. And so we went back and forth, and finally we took it to court that we were going to get those Navy planes back. Well, we lost our shirt on that one. I mean, there was something that said that, well, once it belonged to the Navy, it always belonged to the Navy. But the judge didn't buy that for a minute. So they young men were able to keep it. The one that went down at the south end of Lake Washington was a Boeing plane that was in tip-top shape, and it had everything on board. What were they called? B something. It was a seaplane or float plane. B-27 or something. A big plane that went right down, and that one, I mean, they still had ammunition inside the machine gun when they pulled it up, I guess. But I don't know whatever happened to that one. The other one was way beyond repair. I don't know what they couldn't put it back together. Those were, that was probably, fighting that situation was a drama. The Admiral was bound and determined that we were going to do what the Secretary of the Navy wanted, and the rest of us were saying, we're not going to look good here, and we didn't. He said, well, I'm going to go have lunch with Lana Turner. And I said, well, wait, I'll get my hat and go with you. And he said, well, I said, how do you know Lana Turner? So he said, well, when I was in Hawaii, a priest friend of mine came out from California, and we were walking along Waikiki Beach, and he said, I think that's Lana Turner over there. And he said, no. I said, yes, I think it is. So this guy was kind of pushy, and he went up and introduced himself to Lana Turner. Sure enough, it was Lana Turner. So they had this conversation. They started to walk away, and she said, wait a minute. I said, I need to talk to a Catholic priest. And he said, well, I'm in Los Angeles, but he's out here. He said, well, my mother wants to become a Catholic, and she's approaching death. She's old age. Wants to become a Catholic. And so he said, well, he'll do it. And this chaplain that I'm talking to, our chaplain's really kind of a shy guy. And he, oh, well, all right, if you have to, type of thing. So he begins to instruct Myrtle. Myrtle was her name. Myrtle in the Catholic faith. And they went on for some amount of time, and finally everybody came out and she was baptized. And shortly thereafter, she died. And they wanted him to do the service. Well, they called him in, and they had done a cremation. Cremation was a relatively new thing to the Catholic Church in that time. Not anymore, but at that time it was. So he did the he didn't do the cremation. He did the service, and he said, well, what are we going to do with the ashes? And he said, well, she always liked the Pali up in the mountain, side of the mountain. So they started up there, and the rains opened up. It was only in Cannon, Hawaii. It was just pouring down rain, and they got up there, and he got lost. And he had Myrtle beside him in the seat, and the others were in their family car. So he didn't know what to do. So he turned around, went back to the funeral parlor, and they were all there. And he said, well, let's try it again. So they stayed together this time. They got up to the top of the Pali. Wind up there is terrible. And so he says a couple of prayers, and he doesn't know what to do. So he reaches in and grabs a handful of ashes and throws them, and of course the chaplain doing back right into the wind. And we got ashes all over, and he said, I had Myrtle all over me.